And let's go live from the crawl space of the basement of the WCPT 820 AM studios. You're here on the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, with Paul Chivari, Dan Marver, and Devin Tingle throughout the entire show. We are here on heartlandsignal.com, WCPT 820 AM, WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago, and on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. And to start things off on this edition of the show, some major breaking news over the last few days. And Paulie, you and I were talking about it off mic. One of the things that we really like to nerd out about, or more specifically, we like to cover here on the Sports Cubicle, is the way the media world has changed, the way we consume things, the way the artists and the entertainers are delivering this. And more importantly, the people who are backing these things, these companies. This one really shook the sports world, the entertainment world. This comes to us from the Sports Business Journal. ESPN buys NFL media assets in equity deal. The NFL and ESPN, quote, reached a blockbuster agreement that will place many of the league's top media holdings, including Redzone, with the sports network in exchange for equity in ESPN that is potentially worth billions, according to sources. An official announcement is expected next week. The monumental decision that we're on off again for 4 years have resulted in what is said to be a, quote, complicated agreement. ESPN is expected to have access to Redzone, NFL Network, 7 more regular season games, the NFL's fantasy football business, potential to integrate special features, including betting, and potentially more assets. Sources confirm the NFL, quote, may receive up to 10% of ESPN equity. Their, quote, can be a term linked to the agreement, but it's not known yet how that will be prescribed. The ESPN NFL deal will require regulatory approval, which can make the 9 months to a year. ESPN's parent company, Disney, has its earnings call on Wednesday later on this week. And Paulie, I know you even have more context to this story because it's not just this synopsis right here. There's actually a deeper rabbit hole to fall into.
That's what we think we know. That's just based off the reporting. The deal hasn't been announced yet. We just know that there's enough rumblings and it's such a big deal that something's going to pop between these two large entities. But, we don't know what it's limited to as far as, what NFL properties would be carried over to ESPN, like NFL Plus or, NFL.com, NFL Films, the NFL app, that sort of stuff. We don't know if, ESPN Bet would have a closer relationship with the NFL than any of the other teams, or any of the DraftKings and all that, and, the different betting places. We don't know if this is something that is going to pass like regulations. I can't see it being a monopoly, but I guess I'd think that if you're Fox, NBC, Amazon, one of the other people that are broadcasting the NFL, you're like, now, wait a minute, maybe Amazon would have liked to have had an agreement like this, so it's also like, are they playing favorites by doing this for ESPN? Now, if I'm ESPN, I think this is huge because media these days so hard, and we know ESPN's losing money. They've had to cut so much of their force over the years, so many of their properties. Having the NFL having a 10% or whatever the percentage equity stake in it kind of helps you along a little bit because the NFL doesn't seem to be struggling or going anywhere like that. I don't understand why the NFL would do it other than maybe it's like that third party where, they franchise the McDonald's and it's like, well, they're good at running it. Mm-hmm. So we'll just have them run the media wing of that. So we don't know. We don't know what this all entails, but that was, part of it. And then of course is ESPN going to be critical of the NFL in some of their writings or broadcasting? We see a lot of times the talking heads or the writers might have something to say that's not favorable to the NFL. But if the NFL controls 10% of the content, just a fictionalized
state
number.
Ran.
State ran news. Yeah, exactly. So it makes you wonder about that sort of stuff. And this is kind of outside of it, but I'm thinking too, like ESPN had baseball and was terrible at broadcasting that. I'm just thinking that like maybe they're not the best partner in general. That's just my personal opinion injected into it, that it's like that, ESPN was kind of bad at promoting baseball. Obviously football is a bigger deal than MLB, but I'm just, wondering like, is this the right move at the right time for both of these parties?
I don't know what the ROI is of this, the return of investment, because you look at how people digest these things. Like nobody's going to ESPN, and I shouldn't say nobody, but the way it was in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, you aren't getting the same highlights that you're looking at NFL Live, Sports Center. It's not, so you're not getting the equity there. I think part of the prestige is being a part of the stake that owns the NFL, owns ESPN. It's part of the big time portfolio. It makes it easier when you're selling a team, if you're any of these owners, to have guaranteed media rights or media entities on that. So if you're the Bears, for example, and want to sell it, that's just part of the price tag. Is you always got the guarantee that you own this network, that there will be a home somewhere for the NFL. Like you mentioned, it's like we've seen with the Pat McAfee show on a different spectrum, where it's ESPN wanted to buy programming that's already ran, has its own in-house structure. All we need to do is put it on the air and they'll take care of the quality. If you're the NFL and you're talking about state-ran news, it's like, yeah, who's the biggest infiltrator in all homes when it comes to sports? ESPN. And the critical thinking minds, the critics or the people that try to keep the NFL honest are at The Athletic, or somebody like Pablo Torre finds out, are working for the Ringer or any of these different, they're not working for the four-letter network anymore. ESPN doesn't do journalistic news anymore. Jeff Passan is the most news and legit journalism you're going to get at ESPN, is that type of news.
And that's so unique to just baseball.
And him specifically being so endearing and entrusted compared to like Woj and Shams and Schefter that have their detractors because of who are they actually the mouthpiece of, the players or the owners or the agents.
That was actually going to bring up Woj and all that. So you answered my question before I even answered it.
This is the media landscape that we're living in. And one of the keywords you and I talked about off mic, but as I was reading the article, gambling. The one thing that kind of, it not necessarily frustrates me, but kind of I'm trying to figure out the wavelength of what this deal really is going to be like. I've already kind of looked beyond the veil of, they want to add gambling components to fantasy sports, to the game itself. We've seen here at any of those stadiums you go to, there's a sports book right side out of it. They have these speed channels that are DraftKings, FanDuel. You have the logos and the commercials being played during games. So to me, the infiltration of honesty has already been gone. How can you be an honest product if gambling, if money-making ways that are out of people's hands, part of the equation? This is just another thing that they're just doing now in front of us if it passes through policy, where it's like, how can I trust anything that's being reported, anything that's being shown on ESPN specifically? So does that mean that now NBC becomes more legitimate? CBS becomes more legitimate? Does Amazon, Netflix, like,
all of it was compromised before this
to begin with?
Yeah,
because when you're dealing with these things, so
but even that, just who you pointed out, like CBS, paying the settlement, for the 60 Minutes thing, and then with everything going on with Colbert with the Late Show,
South Park,
South Park, like, well, especially which they had the leverage to at least comment what they wanted to, but at the same time, it's just what ends up happening to them if the powers that be don't want them to be so critical. But yeah, I'm with you. But it was already a compromised market. We're already seeing how specifically President Trump is trying to dictate what people say and do, regardless of whether it's factual or not. So where does all that factor into it? Because Trump's opinion of Disney isn't necessarily great these days, and the NFL, it wavers. I don't think he has a favorable opinion on the NFL, but just depends. I'm also basing that off of like 2018 when everyone was kneeling for the anthem. So who's to say if he even will have an opinion about this? But I feel like if he does have an opinion about this, it's definitely going to sway which direction this goes.
Well, we know the president, I think a lot of politicians, specifically in today's political world, use the NFL as a signal, as a smokescreen. It's an easy way to grab headlines. It's an easy way to rile up your base. And now I guess my question is, bringing all this together is, where is the thin line between entertainment and reality? Sports is always supposed to have been honest to God, and I'm not talking about people taking HGH and trying to win within the margins. I'm talking about, in the end of the day, you're supposed to win on the field.
Yeah.
And everything is honest. Nothing lies. What happens in between the lines, in the court, on the ice, whatever.
You see what you see. So how could it be manipulated? Like the people that have said for years that sports are all rigged. And it's like, no, I saw that guy hit that home run. I saw that guy hit that shot. But you don't know the behind the scenes of maybe the umpire was squeezing the strike zone for one side. Maybe the referee had a point shaving scandal that he was involved in. Maybe, and now that betting's involved with it, I mean,
there you go.
We haven't even, like you were saying, how can it be true since betting got involved? We haven't really seen the stories in the NFL of betting getting in the way, but we're already seeing the stories in Major League Baseball,
NBA.
and NBA. Oh yeah, those two leagues have had huge gambling problems to the point where you don't know if everything that you're seeing is truly honest. Especially when you have Cleveland Guardians pitchers being upset that they got a strikeout.
So am I now supposed to believe that back like in 2004, when we were hearing the Michael Vick story come out, the Donaghy story come out, all the steroids stories come out, am I now supposed to believe that they're going to cover that the right way? Are they going to cover CTE a week and a half after a gunman killed a police officer, injured one of the NFL's own employees, blaming CTE and targeting the NFL? Will we get the true story about these results? Will we get the true journalism? It was already a real ask for ESPN to give us true journalism, but now more than ever, can you trust them when it comes to your football news? That's the question that you and I are going to cover. And more importantly, what does this door open now for other companies, other entities, other sports, tech companies to do something like this? Mm-hmm. How long until Apple owns MSNBC? Or how long until Google owns Fox News? Like, how long until we get to that point where all of them are just buying out their own mouthpieces?
It's funny you say Apple and MSNBC. Are you old enough to remember when Microsoft was going to buy Apple in the 90s?
I know, obviously.
And I want to say the SEC put a stop to that one because it would have been a monopoly in the late 90s. But that's like, I feel like that's the world we're kind of living in anyway, where it's like things have changed so much that, what was once two giant properties could end up, becoming amalgamated somehow based on what the market landscape looks like.
It happens every day. I mean, we just saw Discovery and Warner and how long that takes. And again, as the world gets bigger, everything becomes smaller because everything is just kind of eating each other, and only 4 companies own everything. And this is just one of the cases. The biggest sport in the United States, not necessarily the world, but the United States, just bought arguably the biggest sports news station in the world, other than maybe BT Sports.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting day and age indeed, my friend. Any final thoughts as there will be more news coming out. We will, as the days go on, as the show goes on, if there's more interesting tidbits or information that falls through, obviously we'll jump on Mike, we'll jump on studio and talk about it. But as of right now, from what you've read, what you're seeing, what you're feeling, anything you want to add before we head on with the show?
I'm just waiting for all of it to unfold, but I'm also waiting for my Sinclair media moment where if you remember when Sinclair got all those like regional news stations and they made their anchors like read the same fake news thing. I'm just waiting for that because it's all state-run media now. And it's so funny that we think we live in this free society and this free market capitalism, but it's just really kind of boiling down to all the robber barons again.
And robbers and barons do not give money back. So will you be getting a discount because now ESPN owns all this because the NFL made X amount of money? No, you're still going to be paying head over heels for the NFL Red Zone. He's Paul Chivari. I'm Mike Mercado. You're here on the Sports Cubicle. It's going to be a busy edition of the show here on WCPT 820 AM, heartlandsignal.com, WSBC 1240 AM Chicago, and make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. Keep it tuned in to the Sports Cubicle. We have a jam-packed edition. He's Paul Chivari. I'm Mike Mercado.